Assassin's Creed in the modern day is a joke, let's be honest. The only reason that we buy the new ones is in the hopes to return to the glory of the original games. I remember when they were good, you remember when they were good, so let's talk about it. 2007 was a great year for games. We had BioShock, Call of Duty 4, Halo 3, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, Team Fortress 2, Super Mario Galaxy. It had good shit. There was one game that no other game was similar to, a game that promised action, story, and level design that was unparalleled and had never been seen before. And that game was Assassin's Creed. It was a very good game, and it gave way to one of the best games of the 2000s, Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 2 was some of the best character development and world building anyone had ever seen before. It was a glorious game that took the story in the gaming industry to another level. The world building was incredible, the parkour was amazing, the voice acting was just astonishing, and the game was good. It had no flaws except for the occasional bug. And overall, it was grand. But they released a sequel that no one thought would be as good, but it was. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was just as good as Assassin's Creed 2, and it had all the same strengths from the first game and improved on them by quite a bit. The second and third games were amazing in almost every single category. And then they released a fourth game, and it wasn't nearly as good, although granted, it really wasn't bad either. So, what happened? Why is Assassin's Creed so shitty nowadays? Well, in the modern day, what's more important than your product is the money you make from your product. And so, when they released Assassin's Creed 3, it was so buggy that you couldn't play the game without experiencing at least a bug in every single sequence. Granted, it was at least playable, but Ubisoft still wanted more money. So they decided to institute the policy of releasing at least one Assassin's Creed game a year. They made Black Flag, which was actually pretty good, but then the day of reckoning came. They decided to work on two at once and release both on the same day. Not only that, but one of the games was a new generation of gameplay that was way different from the past games by a long shot. Better graphics, better parkour, better everything. And when they showed the gameplay at E3, you can guess how that went.
Good afternoon. It is the dawn of the 19th century, and Paris is at its darkest hour. The nation is besieged by economic decay. Poverty and hunger are relentless. Revolution is in the air.
The game's development team literally asked for more time to work on the project, but Ubisoft said it was fine the way it was. They released Unity and Rogue, and it was a very buggy mess. It was basically not playable for the majority of that first year. And Ubisoft released a 40 gigabyte patch for the game, and still to this day, after the patch, you will encounter a lot of bugs in the game. Assassin's Creed Rogue did alright, even though it had only around 10 hours worth of a main quest, as opposed to the other games having almost double that on average. And even after the massive tank that Unity had, Ubisoft basically brushed it off and made Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which I really don't remember at all. I only remember its DLC with Jack the Ripper, and that's it. It was a fairly forgettable game and mediocre in the view of the entire series. So then they still continued to try to make a yearly game, and they made Assassin's Creed Origins, which was so buggy and unfinished that I just didn't complete it. It had really cool characters, but it was just not playable. So then, after two game failures, Ubisoft finally took 2 years to finish a game, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey was also very buggy. It was around the same level of care as Origins was, and it just wasn't an Assassin's Creed game. It's not relevant at all to the series, and it was an RPG. And all around, just not the same. Which sucks because it takes place in a cool time in history. The last Assassin's Creed game to release is Valhalla, and it's kind of like Syndicate. It's very forgettable. It isn't bad, but it isn't nearly as good or as memorable as any of the other games in the series. In conclusion, I can look at the burning fire that is the Assassin's Creed franchise and remember the good games, the games that came out when the developers like Ubisoft actually cared about their games instead of money, when they would push their production to 3 years, instead of 10 months to actually make a quality game, with a good story and good programming. I miss those times. So in the end, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, this is my opinion, and you can very much so enjoy the new games. I actually played through Unity again, but I don't really think the games can ever really be as good as the original ones.